The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Welcome to the 15-Point Plan podcast. My name is Ryan Greigg, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jacqueline Smith. Remember, the goal of this podcast is, of course, to increase your energy and reduce your stress while following a system that our business partner and friend, Ben Kinney, has created called the 15-Point Plan. This is a plan. This is a system of 15 points that if we just do one of these or all of these every day, it will increase our energy, it will reduce our stress, and we found that it just makes us a better human overall, doesn't it, Jacqueline?
Absolutely. It sure does.
If you're new to the episode, if you haven't heard about the 15-Point Plan, you can find a copy of it at winmakegive.com. And one of the really cool things about that, you can print that 15-Point Plan out. It's going to give you all of the points on there. It's going to give you a way to look at each one of those. But you can also go and on the back side of that, you can track them. It gives you a 30-day tracker. So if you want to end this year powerfully and go into 2025 in a powerful note, you can go to winmakegive.com. You can download this 15-Point Plan image. If you're like me, you can hang it on your wall, and then you can have a tracker there. And you can track this to see how your progress goes. And today, Jacqueline, we're talking about the first point. We're talking about the first point on this plan, and that is goals.
We are. I love this time of year, Ryan, because it's a time to reflect on all that we've accomplished and the progress we've made over the course of the past year. And then also looking ahead at the future and setting new goals for the next year. And I just find it's a time that I get filled with a lot of hope, a lot of excitement. It energizes me. And really, it doesn't even matter like how the year went, because I'm so hopeful and excited for, the reset and the next year. So I think too that, it's been a tough couple years, at least in the real estate space for a lot of people. And I think it forces us to, when we reflect back, to learn how to celebrate the small wins, because the small wins that we do accomplish every day, every week, those are what add up to us hitting those, call it macro goals over the course of a year, over the course of 3 years, over the course of 5 years. And I think we all could do a bit better job at celebrating the smaller wins, the steps that it takes to get us to our big goal. What do you think?
I think that's such a good point. I am super guilty of not stopping to celebrate my small wins. And I think I've gotten better about that. I think I have gotten better about, I guess it's a matter of slowing down and being proud of what you've done and not just saying, okay, in a few years I have this major goal, but taking a step back and looking back and going, I have done some pretty cool things and I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in talking about setting goals, right, we know that it's important that we write them down, that we rewrite them often, and that they're in a place that we look at them daily, right? For me, I was blessed to sit down, 7-8 years ago and really spend a lot of time with Jacqueline and make what's called a mind map. And this mind map was everything that I could ever want in my life. And she was super helpful in pushing me and encouraging me and really asking me deep questions over probably a month time frame to really let me think very large and think about long-term goals that I want in my life. And they all went on to this mind map that is, I think it's 3.5 feet wide by 5 feet long, and it hangs in my gym. So every single morning when I go out to my gym, I see that. And I was looking at it today because I had a really good conversation with my friend, Steven Stockdale, who I look up to. This guy has tracked his workouts, Jacqueline, his meditations for 925 days straight.
Wow.
And we were talking about goals and we were talking about the mind map, and he sent me the picture of his and he had all these things crossed out. Right. And it made me look at mine, and I had some things on there that a goal was 2018 was something that I wanted to complete. And I realized, dang, I didn't complete that in 2018. And I got down at myself for a second. But then I realized, you know what? I have completed that. It just came a little bit later. And then I looked at the rest of the mind map and I went, wait a minute. I've done that and I've done that and I've done, and it gave me that moment of reflection like we just talked about to go, wait, I have done some pretty amazing things. I've checked off a lot of these mind map things, and it gave me that energy like you talked about to keep going, to check off the rest.
I love that. I was at a Brennan Burchard conference recently down in LA, and one of the things that he opened talking about was are there dreams that you've had in your life for years and years and years, and do you just repeatedly not do them? And that really hit me. Like, what in my life do I just keep putting off? And why do I keep putting it off? And I think a lot of times when it comes to goals, we just don't have relationship with the goals. Like, we'll set a goal and then we kind of forget about it. And so I love that you have a mind map that you look at. I know Brendan Burchard has something he calls a battle board, where he has a giant board on his wall and it's broken up into 12 boxes, one for each month of the year. And he has specific things that he plans to accomplish in each of those boxes. And he looks at that every day. I like to write out my goals every day. And so I like to write. And so maybe that's why I chose that medium, right? So I write them out. And so I don't think it matters necessarily how or what mechanism you use to be in relationship with your goals, as long as you have something, right?
I like how you said, Jacqueline, you like to write. That's why you do that.
Mm-hmm.
If we can find the things that we like to do, we're a lot more likely to do them. So if writing your goals out is what's going to encourage you to do them more, then write them out. If drawing your goals out, if speaking them into your phone is then find what works for you so that you'll do it more frequently. But the question is, how do we set goals, and what areas of our life do we set goals? So when we looked at that, we thought, okay, the first thing that comes to my mind, of course, when talking with Jacqueline is, what are my real estate, what are my business goals? So if we look at our life from a business scope on setting goals, we might break down these buckets into things like, what are my business goals, my financial goals, then my personal goals, my relationship goals, and my health goals, right? If I'm having a conversation with somebody about joining my company and becoming a business partner, I would work through those in that direction. But if I'm looking at my life personally as an individual, I'm almost going to flip that triangle, Jacqueline. And I'm going to say, primarily first, what are my health goals so that I have the energy to show up for my relationship goals, and then into my personal goals, and then my finances in my business. What do you think about that order of goals, or flipping that triangle, either direction?
I don't necessarily think it matters which order you set them in, but I do agree with you that health, I think it's underestimated, and I think it is so directly correlated to whether or not you have the energy to achieve the goals that you set out. So I do agree with you that it's foundational, because so many people, they just don't actually have that strong foundation to give them the energy, which then impacts their mindset and their ability to reach their goals. Our fatigue affects us more than we know. Even setting our goals. And it's funny that we're talking about this, because one of my business partners, this time of the year, we always fill out what I call a business planning prep form, where I ask them to reflect on, what were the personal and professional goals that you set out for the year? Where are you anticipating ending up? What got in your way? So it's just this kind of like a journaling exercise that we walk through. And one of my business partners sent me a message this morning saying, when I filled out my business plan prep form, I was having a tired mindset.
Oh.
And this was earlier. It was prior to us hopping on this, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, wow, just our energy in itself affects what goals we set for ourselves. Our energy that we have at that moment can cause us to maybe set lower goals, to not set goals, and it affects so much our outlook, our mindset, our perspective. And that is just a physical health thing. And so I really think that is the key to being able to accomplish everything else in your life, including your relationship goals. I know when I'm tired, I don't go home and, I'm at my best for Phil. I'm like, oh, I want to be like a lump on a log and, watch Netflix and not talk.
That's right.
So our energy truly does impact every area. Every area is impacted by the decisions you make every day around your health.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why for me, setting those goals in my health is so important. But then I start to think, Jacqueline, well, how do I quantify health goals? And how can our listeners quantify health goals? Because we know that if you just make a goal of, well, I want to be fit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does that mean?
Exactly.
And so, right next to my mind map, I have all these things that I've written down about my health goals that I wrote down 5 years ago. And these were things that I wanted to be able to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Those were things like be able to do 50 push-ups anytime, anywhere, run a mile in 8 minutes or less, anytime, anywhere, stay within a certain weight, right? Stay like my goal was to be 165 to 175. Right now I'm like 178. And I know if I was to get down into that goal range, I'm going to feel a little bit better. But I have numbers that surround those goals that I look at again regularly. And those keep me in the long term thinking, you know what, if I slip here and there, that's okay. But as long as I have that reminder of certain aspects of my life that I want to stay within,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at those commonly of those things that say, okay, you're pretty dang fit if you can do those things. If I can do those for the rest of my life, those are numbers, those are quantifiable goals that are kind of scary. I was just talking about that with my son Bentley because he's running the mile next week. And he's like, Dad, how fast do you think you could run a mile right now? I think I can do it in under 7 minutes. And I'm like, dude, that's super fast, actually. If you can run a mile in under 7 minutes, I don't know that I could do that right now. And the first thing that came to my mind was, but Ryan, you made a goal a long time ago that you would always be able to run a mile in 8 minutes or less. And so having that number there. So Jacqueline, what do you think our listeners can do? What are some numbers or quantifiable ways that we can set health goals?
I think it's different for everyone, but you mentioned a few of them, but it could be just hitting a number of steps per day. It could be doing strength training X number of times per week. It could be, getting a certain amount of protein or drinking a certain amount of water. I have a goal of drinking, 4 of my water bottles every day. That's, stuck with me from 75 hard. I have a goal to walk a certain amount of steps just because even though I might run some of those but it's just how I measure my movement throughout the week. And then it's different for everyone, but I agree it has to be quantifiable. One of the girls that I know in our market, she's a fellow realtor, and I love and respect her so much. And she has been listening to the 15-Point Plan podcast recently and sent me a message saying, I really want to focus on my health goals. And she said that she wanted to be have athletic or athlete level health. And I'm like, okay, kind of like what you were saying, like, I want to be fit. Well, what does that look like? Because to me, athlete level health, that could be different depending on what sport you're playing.
Yeah.
And that could be different for everyone. Like, are we talking about like Olympic athlete, or are we talking about like a mom over 40 who plays baseball athlete? Like, I don't know. Right. So really getting specific, and this goes for really any of the areas of your life that you're setting goals in: relationship, personal, financial, right? It has to be something that, well, did I do that or did I not do that?
Right. And that right there is it, right? Did I do it or did I not?
Yeah.
I said I was going to do it. Did I do it or did I not? How can you say I did become fit? What does that mean?
Right.
So can we take a minute maybe and give our listeners an example on each one of these? Like, how do I quantify a relationship goal, Jacqueline? If I said I have goals for my relationship, well, I just want a better relationship.
Okay.
What are some quantifiable steps that somebody could take to have goals within their relationships?
Yeah. What are the things that in your mind create what you call a good relationship? What are the mechanisms to get there? Just like if I work out, do strength training 4 times a week and walk 10,000 steps a day, I know that I'm going to be a certain level of fit, whatever you want to call it. Right. So for me, relationship would be, maybe a certain number of date days throughout the month. Phil and I set a goal earlier this year that we were going to go, we have a little RV camper that we were going to go 1 weekend a month. We're going to get out of town, even if it's somewhere, not too far away. And we're just going to go camp for the weekend. Did we do that this year? consistently every single month? Absolutely not. We failed at that. But did we do it more often than the year before? Yeah.
Right.
So, we were just talking about that again when we were camping out at Cannon Beach for my birthday, that we really wanted to get back to that plan, right? So that's like one thing is is it a date a week, a date a month? And that might be also different for you depending on, do you have a bunch of young kids at home? I mean, there are seasons where that wouldn't have been possible really for us to go every single week.
Right.
But maybe once a month, or maybe it's reading a relationship book together every month or every quarter. Maybe it's going for a walk every day for 30 minutes, just not even for a workout, but just to decompress and connect and talk. So what are the things that would lead you to having a better relationship? Those are the things that we use to set goals.
They say love is spelled Time.
Of time.
And what I heard, right? Like you just nailed that, by the way, Jacqueline. Thank you for breaking that down. You really nailed that, because if I want health goals, it's going to be time in the gym.
Yeah.
If I want a relationship goal, basically what you just said is it's going to be time, and I'm going to have quantifiable time, X amount of date nights. One time per month, I go on this trip. 4 times per year, we go on a bigger trip. 1 time a year, we go on an amazing trip, right? That's how I look at that's how I break down my relationship goals with my partner, with my friends, with my family, and with my son. So my relationship goals are something along the lines of, I'm going to take 1 international trip with my son, 1 international trip with my best friend and my brother, a couple trips a year with my partner, and then I can check those off throughout the year. So attaching numbers, quantifiable amounts to these into the personal as well. And people might think, well, gosh, in that personal bucket, that might find the spiritual, right? How the heck do we quantify a spiritual goal? Maybe that's, I don't meditate at all, Ryan. So my goal is to meditate for 1 minute a day.
Right.
For 30 days. And then after I do that, I'm going to bump it up to 3 minutes a day for 30 days. And after that, I'm going to shoot for 10 minutes a day for 30 days. And by the end of the year, I'm going to shoot for 15 minutes a day for 30 days. That is a quantifiable, personal, spiritual goal that would change your life if you did it.
And then we have financial and then business. So some examples for financial would be maybe to have a certain amount of savings or to pay off X amount of debt. And then, obviously you'd go, which would be another whole episode on, okay, once you set the goal, how do you create an action plan around it? But paying off debt, saving, maybe buying an investment property, maybe buying your first house. A financial goal could be also just to reach out to a mortgage lender, fill out an application and find out, well, what would I have to do in order to be in position to buy my first house if I haven't already, or to buy my first investment property if I haven't already? Maybe it's to pay less taxes. Maybe it's to read X amount of financial books. A few years back, I decided, gosh, if I really want to improve my financial literacy and my wealth position, I'm probably going to have to, like you said, spend some time. And maybe I have to take a little break from reading all of the mindset and human development books that I just love to dive into and read, and actually make some time to read some financial books, which was like boring, right?
Yeah.
To me at the time. But it's crazy how, like, you actually, as you dive in, your appetite increases for these things. I read The Psychology of Money. That really was an amazing book. I think everyone should read that book. And then I read The Wealthy Code, which was really hard for me to read. It's this teeny skinny little book, and it was like so hard for me to read. But I've learned so much just from committing to reading 3 financial books per year. And then business, what can I learn and what can I do to hit some business goals? My business goal might be, I want to get to a certain amount of revenue or a certain amount of profit, or I want to help a certain amount of other people get to a certain amount of revenue, a certain amount of profit, right? So what are your business goals? Don't get so caught up in the how that you don't set the goal, because the how is the next step. The first step is really deciding, what do you want? Which for some of us is a really challenging question. If you've been in survival mode like me, I never decided what I wanted until I was probably close to my 40s in life. And I wish someone would have helped me do it sooner, because I reacted a lot. I got really resourceful and I was adaptable, but I didn't know how to decide what I wanted. And that might be a whole other episode. But you have to spend some time, like Ryan said, some TIME, thinking about what it is you want in your life. And that's the first step, I think, in setting amazing goals, and not getting caught up in the how, the who, the what, all the details.
That's right.
And not letting your current maybe mindset, fatigue, energy keep you small and play small. So those are some good starting points, I think, for our listeners. What would you add, Ryan?
The only thing that I would add to that, Jacqueline, I think you really, again, nailed that. And people do get caught up on that. I don't know how I'm going to hit that goal. You mentioned you don't need to know how. You just need to know why you want that goal. And my friend Lucas Sheridan said, when the why is big enough, the how shows up. When the why is big enough, when your reason for that goal is big enough, you will figure that how out. So don't worry about the how when setting the goal. Have the strong enough reason for that goal, and you will figure out the how. And, reading those wealth books is really freaking weird. It's super awkward. It's not fun. But was working out fun the first time we did it? No. Right? Was meditating fun the first time we did it? No. It was also super awkward. But when we work out for a year, we realize the benefit. When we meditate for a year, we realize the benefit. When we read those books, we see the benefit. Then we start to gain that appetite, and it increases, just like you said. So all of these things are going to be awkward and feel weird to start. Then you see the benefit. Then you crave them more. Then you write them down more. Then you grow. Then you share them with everybody. Then everybody grows and we all win.
Yeah. And just on the lines of books, and then we'll wrap up, I want to share 2 books. And Ryan, maybe you have one or two that you love. But if you haven't been the best at setting clear goals, if that's something that you want to work on, if this is one of the 15 points that you want to get better at this time of the year going into 2025, 2 books that changed really, I think, my life and the way I think about goals. Number 1 is The Gap versus Gain. It's a blue book. I don't have the author off the top of my head, but Gap versus Gain. I focus a lot on the gap. And when we do that, goal setting usually isn't fun.
That's right.
So learning to focus on the gain. And then also the other one is 12-week year. So this is breaking down your annual goals into just 12-week years. So you don't have the mindset of, I have all the time in the world. So you kind of procrastinate and put things off. And then you end up in fourth quarter and try to catch up. It's not a fun place to be. So how do you break it down into 12-week years? I love that book. And I usually read that every year this time of year.
Super smart. Because what happens is those goals become so big, we lose track over time. So Gap versus Gain by Dan Sullivan and the 12-week year by Brian Moran. Jacqueline, the first book that came to mind, honestly, was Mindset by Carol Dweck, which is not a goal-setting book. But if your mindset is out of place, you're not going to even take the time to set your goals. So get your mindset right first and your attitude around those goals. And I think the goals will come easier. So that's what we got for today, a conversation on goals. As we're moving into the end of 2024 and going into 2025, looking at our goals and all those buckets from health, relationship, personal, financial, and business. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that will get in our way of hitting these goals and how we can stay ahead of those. So until then, thank you for listening. As always, as I mentioned earlier, check winmakegive.com. You can find all of our podcast network on there. And whichever podcast platform you listen on, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that share button for a friend that could benefit from this as well. Jacqueline, take us away. Final words.
Well, I just appreciate you all so much, everyone that's been sharing and engaging. And we are so thankful that you're here. And we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.